June 14th, 1944, 0430 hours. A dusty road outside St-Lo, Normandy. The air stinks of cordite and wet wool. Obergefreiter Hans Müller stumbles forward, hands laced behind his neck, boots half swallowed by churned earth. His feldgrau tunic hangs in tatters. The iron cross at his throat is the only thing still gleaming. Behind him, the rest of his platoon, 23 men, shuffle in a ragged column. No one speaks. The only sound is the clack-clack of American GIs being safetied, and the low growl of a waiting deuce and a half. A GI with a Thompson motions them aboard. Hans climbs the tailgate. The canvas smells of new rubber and coffee, real coffee. His stomach knots so hard he nearly retches. 6 weeks on ersatz acorn brew and sawdust bread have hollowed him out. He hasn't tasted meat since Tunis. The truck lurches. Through the slit in the canvas, he watches Normandy slide past. Hedgerows shredded by bazooka fire, a knocked-out panther still smouldering, its long 75mm barrel drooping like a broken finger. American soldiers laugh beside the road, passing cigarettes. One tears open a Hershey bar, chocolate glinting like gold leaf. And his mouth floods with spit he can't swallow. He thinks of the Führer's promise, victory or annihilation. Annihilation feels closer, starvation he's ready for. The Geneva Convention pamphlets the armies dropped last week showed skeletal Tommies in 18, proof of what captivity means. He braces for it. The convoy rolls south for hours, then west, then south again, across France, onto trains, across an ocean he never sees. Days blur. The guards toss K-rations through the boxcar slats, spam, crackers, a tiny can of peaches. And wolfs his share, ashamed of the gratitude. At last the train screeches into a siding under a merciless Mississippi sun. A sign reads, Camp Shelby, prisoner of war camp. Barbed wire glints like piano wire. Machine gun towers sweep lazy arcs. Hens's knees buckle as he steps onto American soil. The heat is a wet fist. Cicadas scream. A sergeant with a clipboard barks in careful German, line up. Names, ranks, serial numbers. Hans obeys. The sergeant's uniform is pressed, boots mirror shiny. He smells of talc and tobacco, luxuries Hans hasn't known in years. They march between rows of whitewashed barracks. MPs flank them, but their rifles hang loose. No one prods with bayonets. No one screams. And risks a glance at the mess hall ahead. Screen doors, checkered curtains, the faint clatter of metal trays. Inside, the smell hits like a shell burst. Roast beef, gravy thick as axle grease, yeast bread still steaming. A colored cook in a crisp apron ladles mashed potatoes onto a tray and slides it toward the first prisoner. The man stares, tray trembling. A dollop of butter melts into the potatoes, golden and obscene. Hans is next. The server, smiling, actually smiling, adds a square of apple cobbler topped with a scoop of vanilla ice cream, already beading in the heat. Ice. Cream. In June. He carries the tray to a long table. The bench is clean. The fork is real metal, not splinters of wood. He sits. The first bite of beef is so tender, it falls apart on his tongue. Juice runs down his chin. He doesn't wipe it away. Across from him, Feldwebel Klaus Ritter whispers, voice cracking. They feed the guards this? Hans looks. Through the serving hatch, he sees American enlisted men in the same line, same trays, same cobbler. One GI winks at a prisoner and slides him an extra roll. Hans's spoon stops halfway to his mouth. The revelation lands harder than any artillery shell. We are eating better than the officers back home. He thinks of his mother in Dresden, ration cards clutched like rosary beads. He thinks of the last letter from his wife. The children ask why the bread tastes of glue. He thinks of General Feldmarschall von Richthofen dining on boiled turnips, while these teenagers in olive drab lick ice cream from tin spoons. The cobbler is still warm. Cinnamon stings his eyes, or maybe that's something else. A guard clangs a bell. Seconds in 5! And stands, legs trembling, tray outstretched. For the first time in years, he's not afraid of tomorrow's hunger. But what does it mean when the enemy feeds you like a king, and your own leaders let you starve? July 6, 1944, 1900 hours. Barracks 14A, Camp Shelby, Mississippi. The ceiling fan hums like a lazy Stuka. Hans sits on his bunk, Red Cross stationery balanced on a crate. A stub of pencil, government issue sharp, hovers over the page. The barrack smells of pine soap and fresh laundry. Every prisoner got 2 towels, 2 bars of ivory, 1 tube of Colgate. He still can't believe it. Around him, 20 other men bend over identical letters. The scratch of graphite is the loudest sound in the room. No one speaks of escape. No one speaks of the Reich. They speak of butter. Feldwebel Ritter licks his envelope, eyes shining. I told my Greta the potatoes swim in real cream. She'll think I've gone mad. Hans writes in careful Sutterlin. Leaps to Anna, the Americans give us roast beef 3 times a week. White bread, soft, no sawdust. Yesterday, peach pie with ice cream. The guards eat the same. I swear it on my life. He pauses. The pencil trembles. How to explain the shame coiled in his gut like barbed wire. I thought of you and the boys when the butter melted. I cried into my tray. Forgive me. A whistle shrills outside, mail call. Prisoners surge toward the door, clutching envelopes like love letters to ghosts. An MP collects them in a canvas sack. No censorship here, only the promise that Berlin will read every word. Hans hesitates. If the Gestapo sees this, Anna's ration cards vanish. If he lies, he betrays the truth, burning his tongue. He adds a line, tell no one. Burn this after reading. He seals the envelope, heart hammering louder than the fan. 2 weeks later, the replies arrive. Thick packets, onion skin paper, children scrawl on the backs. Hans rips his open under the mess hall table, gravy cooling on his tray. Anna's handwriting, shaky, ink-smudged. Hansel, the boys read your letter aloud. Little Dieter asked if America is heaven. I told him no, only that God has strange ways. She includes a pressed violet from the windowsill geranium. He lifts it to his nose. Dust and home, but the next letter is different. From his brother, Oberleutnant Karl Müller, Eastern Front, you disgrace the uniform with your Yankee fairy tales. Here we fight with empty bellies while you grow fat on enemy lies. The Führer demands sacrifice. Remember your oath. The paper shakes in Hans's fist. He looks around the mess hall. Prisoners laughing over seconds. A GI teaching a young Bavarian how to say pass the salt in English. A colored cook slips an extra chicken leg onto Ritter's tray with a wink. Sacrifice. The word tastes like rust. That night, Hans volunteers for the camp newspaper, Der Zaungast, printed on real newsprint, distributed to every barracks. The American major in charge, a soft-spoken Texan named Captain Hargrove, hands him a typewriter. Real ribbons, real keys. Hans's first article, A Day in the Life of a Shelby Guest. He describes the morning calisthenics, voluntary. The afternoon soccer matches, prisoners versus guards, guards lose on purpose. The evening films, Casablanca in German subtitles. He does not mention the nightmares, but the letters keep coming. From wives, mothers, sweethearts, each one a plea disguised as gratitude. Send coffee if you can. Real coffee. The children's shoes have holes. Could the Americans spare leather? One envelope contains a child's drawing, stick figure Hans holding a giant pie, American flag in the background. Underneath in wobbly crayon, Danke, Uncle Sam. Hans pins it above his bunk. Every night he stares at it until the barracks lights dim, then the packages arrive. Red Cross parcels for every man. Chocolate, cigarettes, wool socks. The Americans add extras. Canned hams, razor blades, even harmonicas. Prisoners trade the harmonicas for guard duty shortcuts. One man swaps a mouth organ for a ride in a jeep. Hans watches a 19-year-old Berliner named Fritz play Lily Marlene on a borrowed guitar. American sentries lean on the fence, humming along. For 3 minutes the war forgets itself, but the revelation festers. Hans starts noticing details. The camp dentist fills cavities with silver amalgam, not the black paste back home. The laundry returns shirts pressed, buttons replaced. The camp library stocks Goethe, Schiller, and Hemingway in English. One afternoon, Captain Hargrove invites Hans to the officers' mess. Not as a prisoner, as a guest. The table groans, fried chicken, cornbread, collard greens swimming in bacon fat. Hargrove pours sweet tea from a pitcher beaded with ice. Why?
Hans blurts.
Why feed us like this? Hargrove shrugs. Because we can, and because hungry men make bad neighbors. Hans stares at the chicken leg in his hand, crisp skin, juice running clear. He thinks of Karl on the Vistula, gnawing frozen horseflesh. That night he writes a new letter. No salutation, no signature. Just truth. If abundance is the enemy's weapon, then we have already lost. He folds the page small, tucks it into the lining of his mattress. One day maybe someone will find it. Outside, the cicadas scream like incoming shells. Inside, the fan keeps turning. Hans closes his eyes and tastes peach pie on a tongue that no longer believes in hunger. But what happens when the war ends and these well-fed prisoners go home to a Reich built on empty stomachs? September 19th, 1944, 1400 hours. Camp Shelby Theatre Building T12. The projector clacks like a machine gun. Black and white footage flickers across a bedsheet screen. Skeletal figures behind barbed wire, lampshades of human skin, a bulldozer shoving corpses into a pit. The smell of buttered popcorn, real butter, hangs in the air, obscene against the images. Hans sits rigid in the front row, mandated attendance. Every prisoner wears a freshly laundered denim jumpsuit stamped PW in orange. The denim is soft, too soft. It feels like betrayal. Captain Hargrove stands beside the projector, voice flat. This is Buchenwald, liberated by your enemies. Pay attention. The room is silent except for retching. A boy from Munich bolts for the door, but an MP blocks him gently. Sit, son. You need to see. Hans does not look away. He has seen worse, on the steps in the ruins of Stalingrad. But never like this. Never with American narration. The voiceover is calm, Midwestern, almost bored. These are your countrymen's handiwork. After the film, the lights come up. No one moves. Hargrove distributes pamphlets. Die Wahrheit, the truth. Glossy paper, photographs too sharp to be fakes. Hinder's hands shake as he turns the pages. A child's shoe in the mud. A woman's hair shaved for mattresses. That night, the barracks crackle with whispers. Some call it propaganda. Others weep openly. Ritter paces, fists clenched. Lies! They dress actors in stripes. But Hans remembers the extra chicken leg, the dentist's drill, the harmonica. Lies this elaborate would cost more than the Reich has left. The Reeducation program begins in earnest. Monday mornings, democracy class in the mess hall. A Jewish professor from Tulane, Dr. Rosenthal, exiled in 1937, lectures in flawless German. He writes on a chalkboard, Freiheit ist Verantwortung. Freedom is responsibility. Prisoners take notes on real paper with real pencils. Dr. Rosenthal shows newsreels of the Nuremberg laws, Kristallnacht, the Wannsee minutes. He never raises his voice. He doesn't need to. Wednesday afternoons, work details. Voluntary paid-in camp script, 10 cents an hour. Hinds picks cotton alongside Negro sharecroppers who sing in harmonies that make his chest ache. The overseer is a one-armed veteran named Sergeant Pike. He hands Hans a canteen of ice water without being asked. Hotten Hitler's hell out here. Pike grins. Hans laughs, actually laughs, then hates himself for it. The script buys luxuries at the canteen, Coca-Cola, Lifesavers, Camel cigarettes. Hans trades his for a second-hand Kodak brownie. He photographs everything, the baseball diamond where prisoners beat the guards 7-4, the vegetable garden where tomatoes grow fat as grenades, the chapel where Catholic and Protestant services alternate with Lutheran hymns. One Sunday, the chaplain, a Lutheran pastor from Minnesota, asks for volunteers to rebuild the colored church burned by the Klan outside Hattiesburg. 50 prisoners raise their hands. They load into trucks, tools clanking. Hans hammers nails beside a man who once guarded Dachau. Neither speaks of it. The camera clicks. Hans captures the Dachau guard, passing a hammer to a black deacon. The deacon's smile is missing teeth. The guard's eyes are wet. Back at camp, the photos go up on the barracks wall. Underneath, someone writes in English, "We were wrong. The program escalates." Guest speakers. a captured U-boat ace who saw New York's skyline ablaze with lights while Berlin starved in darkness. A French resistance fighter with a limp and a bottle of real Bordeaux. A whack nurse who treated frostbite at Bastogne and now stitches soccer injuries here. Each story chips away at the myth and starts dreaming in English. He wakes reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, horrified. Then the Völkische Beobachter arrives, smuggled in by a new batch of diehards. Front page, Judaized America starves German heroes. Hans reads it aloud to the barracks. Laughter erupts. Someone uses the newspaper to wrap fish heads for the camp cats, but not everyone laughs. A knot of SS men forms in Barracks 9. Tattoos peek from collars. They hoard razor blades, whisper about honor and Enzig. One night they beat a traitor who praised Roosevelt. The MPs break it up with fire hoses, not bullets. Hans is called to Hargrove's office. The captain slides a file across the desk. Hans's brother Karl, killed near Warsaw. Shot for desertion after writing home about American plenty. Hargrove's voice is gentle. Your family's safe. We checked, but the war's ending, Miller. What you do next matters. Hans stares at Karl's death notice. The paper is crisp, official. He thinks of the child's drawing above his bunk. Danke, Uncle Sam. That night he volunteers for the most dangerous job, translating intercepted German radio traffic. The intel room is air-conditioned. The coffee is real. He deciphers pleas from U-boats running on fumes, from garrisons eating boot leather. Each message ends the same. Heil Hitler. Each voice cracks with hunger. Hans types the translations, fingers steady. He adds margin notes. They still believe. One transmission chills him. A plan to bomb Camp Shelby with stolen B-17s, piloted by fanatics who'd rather die than surrender. The date, October 31st. Hargrove reads Hans's report, face grim. We move them at dawn. You're coming with us to identify the ring. Hans nods. For the first time, the enemy is not America. But what happens when a man betrays his own to save the people who fed him? October 30th, 1944, 02:30 hours. Motor pool, Camp Shelby. Moonlight slices through the pines, silvering the jeeps. Hans crouches behind a fuel drum, heart jackhammering against his ribs. Captain Hargrove's breath fogs beside him, 2 shadows among 20. MPs fan out, carbines low, no lights. No noise but cicadas and the distant clank of a wrench. Barracks 9 is dark, but Hans knows the rhythm. The SS men rise at 0200, strip bedsheets into ropes, whisper Blitzengriff. He'd overheard them in the latrine, voices slurred with hate and stolen peach brandy. Their plan, seize the armory, hotwire the B-17s from the nearby airfield, rain hell on the camp that corrupted them. Hargrove's hand settles on Hans's shoulder. You sure, Müller? Hans nods. The Kodak in his pocket feels heavier than a Panzerfaust. Inside, photographs of the ringleaders, Hauptsturmführer Erich Voss, scar across his lip like a lightning bolt. Unterscharführer Karl-Heinz Becker, eyes flat as winter ice. Hans took the shots during soccer practice, pretending to capture team spirit. A door creaks. Voss steps out, coat over pajamas, Luger glinting. Behind him, 6 shadows. They move like wolves, silent, purposeful. Hans's throat closes. He once saluted this man in Crete. Hargrove whistles, sharp, 2 notes. Floodlights snap on. Jeeps roar to life. Halt, Hände hoch! The SS scatter. Gunfire stitches the night. Hans dives behind a tire stack as tracers arc overhead. A prisoner screams, Becker, leg shattered, crawling toward the fence. Voss spins, Luger barking. An MP drops. Hans is running before he thinks. He tackles Voss from behind, shoulder slamming into kidneys. They roll in the dust. The scar splits open. Blood smells of iron. Voss snarls, Traitor! The Luger presses under Hans's chin. Click empty. Hargrove's boot pins Voss's wrist. Zip ties snap. The fight ends in seconds. 6 SS men face down, MPs cuffing wrists. Becker sobs, calling for his mother. Hans kneels, panting, tasting dirt and cordite. Dawn paints the sky peach. The camp is locked down. Prisoners peer from windows, faces pale. Ritter stands at Hans's barrack door, eyes wide. You stop them, Hans nods. His hands won't stop shaking. Hargrove claps his back. You just saved 3,000 lives, son, including your own. The B-17s never fly. The armory stays locked, but the reckoning ripples. That afternoon, the camp holds a tribunal in the theater. Boss stands defiant, chin high. I acted for the fatherland. The American major presiding, Colonel Whitaker, West Point 29, reads the charges. Attempted murder, sabotage, violation of parole. Sentence, transfer to a maximum security stockade in Georgia. No appeal, Voss spits. You feed us to fatten us for the slaughter. Whitaker's voice is ice. You were fed to keep you human. You chose otherwise, Hans testifies. His voice doesn't waver. He describes the ropes, the brandy, the whispered coordinates. When he finishes, the room is silent. Even the cicadas seem to listen. Afterward, prisoners avoid barracks 9 like plague. The SS are gone by nightfall, loaded into boxcars under armed guard. Rumor says they'll face German courts after the war. Hence doubts any court will be left. The camp changes. Trust fractures. Some prisoners shun Hans, Verräter. Others slip him extra cigarettes, a nod across the mess hall. Ritter brings him a slice of cornbread wrapped in wax paper. For courage, he mutters. Hans can't eat it. He photographs the empty bunks instead, sheets stripped, mattresses rolled like surrender flags. November brings frost. The cotton is in. Work details end. Script piles up. Hans buys a leather-bound journal at the canteen. He writes in English now, practicing the loops and crosses Dr. Rosenthal taught him. Entry 47. Today, I chose a side. It was not Germany. Thanksgiving arrives like a holiday from another planet. The mess hall tables groan. Turkey the size of mortars, cranberry sauce jewel red, pumpkin pie with whipped cream piped into rosettes. Even the guards eat standing. There aren't enough chairs. Colonel Whitaker carves the first bird. He calls Hans forward. Our translator earned the first slice. Hans stands, denim jumpsuit pressed, hair combed with water. 3,000 prisoners watch. He takes the plate, white meat, skin crackling. The room erupts in applause. Someone starts singing Silent Night in German. Americans join in English. The harmonies clash, then merge. Hans's eyes burn. He thinks of Karl's death notice, of Anna's violet, of the child's crayon drawing. He raises the plate like a toast. That night a new letter arrives. No return address, postmarked New York. Inside, a single photograph. Anna and the boys outside a brick house, picket fence, a Ford in the driveway. On the back, in English, they got out. Operation Paperclip's cousin, Red Cross pulled strings. We're safe. Come when you can. A friend. Hans presses the photo to his chest. The barracks fan hums. Outside, frost glints on the barbed wire like sugar, but the war isn't over. Berlin burns. The Führer rants in a bunker. And somewhere, men still starve for a lie. What does a well-fed traitor do when the Reich finally falls? May 8, 1945, 600 hours. Docks of New York Harbor, the Statue of Liberty rises through the fog like a ghost in green bronze, and stands at the rail of the USS West Point. Denim jumpsuit traded for a gray civilian suit 2 sizes too big. His discharge papers, honorable, signed by Colonel Whitaker, crackle in his breast pocket. The Kodak is gone, surrendered with the camera, but the images live behind his eyes. Around him, 200 former prisoners clutch cardboard suitcases stamped property of U.S. Army. No bands play, no reporters swarm. The war ended yesterday, VE Day, and the world is too drunk on victory to notice the losers going home. A Red Cross worker hands Hans a paper cup of coffee. Real beans, no chicory. He sips, scalds his tongue, and doesn't care. The harbor smells of salt and diesel and something like hope. The gangway clangs, and steps onto American soil for the second time, this time free. A bus waits, destination Camp Shanks Processing Center. From there, a troop ship to Bremerhaven, then trains to wherever home still exists, but home has already found him. Anna waits beyond the gate, boys flanking her like sentries. Dieter is taller, freckles across his nose. Little Klaus hides behind her skirt, thumb in mouth. Anna's coat is new, American wool, buttons shining. Her eyes are older than the Atlantic. Hans drops his suitcase. The boys run. He kneels in the dust, arms open. They smell of soap and Hershey bars. Anna's kiss tastes of salt, hers or his, he can't tell. The bus ride to Shanks is quiet. Anna explains in whispers. The Red Cross forged papers. A Quaker family in Queens sponsored them. A factory job sewing parachutes paid the rent. The boys go to PS 81. They pledge allegiance every morning. Dieter plays Shortstop. Hans stares out the window at billboards for Chesterfield cigarettes and the bells of St. Mary's. The abundance is no longer a revelation. It is air. At Shanks, they assign him a bunk in the transient barracks. Anna and the boys are quartered in a nearby hostel. That night, Hans lies awake listening to former Kriegsmarine sailors argue about whether Hamburg still stands. He clutches Anna's new address, 4211 73rd Street, Jackson Heights, like a grenade pin. The troopship Marine Raven sails on May 15th, 10 days of grey water, spam sandwiches and newsreels of Hitler's bunker. Hints volunteers as interpreter again, old habits. He translates for homesick boys who once manned 88s and now cry for mothers they may never see. Bremerhaven, May 25th. The docks are rubble. Cranes lie twisted like dead spiders. Hans steps ashore into a silence thicker than fog. No brass bands here either, just British Tommies handing out bully beef and hardtack. The train to Dresden is a cattle car with benches. And shares his compartment with a one-legged Fallschirmjäger and a woman carrying a birdcage wrapped in newspaper. The bird is dead. She doesn't know yet. Saxony rolls past, villages flatten, chimneys standing like tombstones. Children wave at the train with sticks for toys. Hans presses his forehead to the glass. The abundance of Camp Shelby feels like a fever dream. Dresden, May 28th. The station is a shell. Hans walks the last mile through streets of broken teeth. The Elbe stinks of ash and sewage. He finds what's left of his street. 3 walls and a staircase to nowhere. Anna's parents' house is gone. A neighbor, Frau Kessler, recognizes him. Your family's in the Soviet zone now, she whispers. They took the factory workers east. Said it was reparations. Hans's knees buckle. The suitcase slips from his fingers. Inside, American cigarettes, a jar of peanut butter, the leather journal. All useless now. Frau Kessler offers her cellar. 1 room, dirt floor, a stove that coughs smoke. Hans sleeps on straw, journal open to a blank page. He writes by candle stub, entry 1. I crossed an ocean to find home erased. The Americans fed me truth. The Russians feed me silence. June brings rumors. The Allies divide Germany like a loaf. Saxony falls to the Soviets. Hans needs papers to cross the zone border, papers he doesn't have. He trades his last camel pack for a forged Perselschein, a clean denazification certificate. The forger is 12, missing 2 fingers. He hitches rides on coal trucks, walks at night. Near Leipzig, Red Army soldiers stop him. A captain with gold teeth demands his boots. Hans gives them. He walks the last 20 kilometers in socks, stiffened with blood. Jackson Heights, July 4th, 1945. The door opens before he knocks. Anna's scream brings neighbors. The boys tackle him. Fireworks explode over Flushing Meadows, red, white, blue. Hans weeps into Anna's hair as bottle rockets screech like Stukas. The apartment smells of coffee and apple pie. A radio plays Glenn Miller. Dieter shows him a baseball glove, real leather, oiled. Little Klaus recites the pledge in English, hand over heart. That night Hans stands on the fire escape. Queens hums below, streetlights, ice cream trucks, a future loud with possibility. He opens the journal to a new page. Entry 2, I buried the Iron Cross in Frau Kessler's cellar. Let the earth keep it. Here hunger is a story we tell the children, so they finish their vegetables. Years later, Hans Müller, naturalized citizen, night foreman at a Long Island factory, will take his grandsons to Camp Shelby, now a museum. He'll point to the mess hall, the barracks, the spot where he tackled Voss. They'll ask, were you a prisoner, Opa? He'll smile, hand them peach cobbler from the cafeteria. I was a guest, he'll say. And I never left.